does Germany treat immigrants who don't know German? Over the course of the debate over Bill 96, many of those arguing for a strengthening of Quebec's language laws have pointed to Europe to make their case. If you go to Germany, you have to speak German. That's a line we've heard over and over. But is it true? What does a person who moves to Germany have to deal with? Let's head over to Germany now. Tim Forster joins us on the line, freelance food, culture, and technology writer, and an editor from Montreal, based in Berlin for the last 2 years. Tim, welcome back to the show. I should note you used to join us back when you were in Montreal as well. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, good morning, Elias. And yeah, always glad to speak with you.
Okay, so Tim, first off, just tell our listeners here, when you headed to Berlin, why did you head to Berlin? Just give me a bit of the backstory here before we get into life as an immigrant in Germany.
Yeah, so I mean, it was not a decision on a whim, but it was a bit sort of, I want a change of scenery. Living in Europe would be nice. I happen to have a UK passport through one of my parents pre-Brexit, and opted for Berlin because it has a really strong arts and culture scene. Maybe it does actually help that you don't need German as much in Berlin as the rest of Germany too. Because I did consider Paris, where I would have had a language advantage, but opted for Berlin.
Well, I've only spent 4 days in Berlin once, and I was so pleasantly surprised with how much English they would speak if you went into a bar or restaurant, how helpful they were. But let's get into 2 years ago, you head to Berlin, you land there, and now you got to do what everyone has to do when they move to a new place. Get the cell plan, get the internet at home, find a place to rent, talk to the government. So let's go through all that. Maybe we'll start off with the government side of things. When you move to Germany and you don't speak German, how does interaction with the government go?
So the government is probably the area where you most need German, I would say. I have not encountered government staff who will address you in English. It's a little unclear as to whether or not they're allowed to, and there are suggestions that they are not allowed to address in other languages. I think it's sort of because of legal concerns that, if they say something inaccurately in the other language, they might be held to the inaccurate thing that they've said. So they have to stick to German for precision purposes, which it can be a little scary because, when you move into a new apartment here, you have to register your address with the government. It's kind of a common thing in Europe. Uh-huh. And even for that simple task, I went in with really bad German when I first had to do that, and you can kind of muddle your way through it. But there's no getting around that. Compared to, in Quebec, you can usually get French and English even for provincial level service. Federal, of course, you can get both.
And Tim, so have you had to rely on maybe some friends at time to join you on the phone call or anything like that? If you've had to, or have you just muddled through, as you put it, on your own?
The silver lining of the pandemic, because I moved here just before the start of the pandemic, was I ended up putting a bit more effort into German pretty immediately. So I haven't had anything complicated enough where I felt like I seriously needed to bring a friend. It's really common for other people to do this, though, especially people that have visa appointments, commonly bring a German-speaking friend with them, or any more complicated bureaucratic thing where even if they have base-level German, it's a complex language. It's quite finicky, and there's almost this sort of little market of German speakers for hire for people who can't convince their friends to come with them to the office, to the whatever government office you have to go to.
Mm-hmm. We're with Tim Forster. He's based in Berlin, from Montreal, now in Berlin. So, Tim, let's get to healthcare, because for our listeners, that is particularly when it comes to Bill 96, the thing they're so concerned about, with good reason. So I got to ask you, what about healthcare access? What happens when you need to go to a clinic or see a doctor? How does that work?
So it is more or less that doctors can give service in whatever language they want. I believe to be licensed, you do have to do your licensing exam in German, and I think that's fair. But there's no requirement for them to treat patients in German specifically. English is pretty easy. If you're looking at other European languages, you probably have to shop around to find perhaps a more specific doctor. But yeah, absolutely no problem. I've had more difficulty getting past the staff at the front desk who sometimes don't speak English. But that's, you figure out how to say, I need an appointment, and it's pretty easy. And then it's an absolute breeze with the doctors. The bureaucracy is a little trickier because they have a system here where it's a bit like if you had multiple RAM queues instead of just one, and you choose which one you go to, although they're all almost the same. And only a couple of those will offer service in English, but I mean, you just opt for one of the ones that has English service, problem solved.
Yeah. And Tim, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was employment laws and laws surrounding working in English. Obviously there are differences, right, when it comes to Quebec versus Germany. Right? Quebec's a province in Canada. Canada has 2 official languages, so there are some peculiarities. But I like talking about employment because, Germany is also now a hub for so many tech industries and so many, up-and-coming startups, right? And I wanted to ask you if they have to deal with any language laws when it comes to hiring, requiring English, that sort of thing.
So there are, it depends exactly on the nature of the work. So I believe if you're in a sort of a regulated profession like medicine, like I mentioned before, that's where there may be some language requirements. But generally, there are quite a lot of jobs in Berlin where you can be hired with quite literally 0 German. One of the companies I work with at the moment, I have a sizable contract with them. The question of my German, it is a German company. Their headquarters is here in Berlin, and this question, there is never any question about me having any ability in German whatsoever, even though I have some base level knowledge. It's quite, and then you even in, say, coffee shops in Berlin, you can get staff that don't speak German, which I do find a little weirder because I feel like that could lead to awkward interactions with customers who only speak German, but it's allowed. And yeah, I think there's not Germany's a very large country, 85 million people or so. I don't think there's a sort of fear of the language being under siege as much.
And Tim, just to wrap up here, because I know you're an opinionated guy. I love following you on Twitter, by the way. And if anyone wants to follow Tim on Twitter, go to my Instagram, my Twitter, @EliasMakos, and you'll see I've just retweeted Tim. Let me get your opinionated take on, to wrap up here. What's your take on, because I know you follow everything that's going on with Bill 96, and you know the language issues in this city, having spent so much time here. What's your take, having the experience in Germany, hearing what's going on in Quebec? Well, what would be your thoughts on that?
Oh, God. I mean, I've seen the medical side of Bill 96, and it looks like a mess. It seems like just a very, very bad idea and a very badly made bill that I would have thought would not get past the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but there are ways around that. So, look, in some ways it's hard to say because I do agree to some degree that, some of the society in Quebec should operate in French, and, getting customer service in French in a lot of circumstances is probably a good thing to have. But getting into this territory of, who's a heritage Anglophone or not is pretty rough. And, I'm fluent-ish in French, but I would not have liked to deal with doctors in Montreal strictly in French.
Tim, I did not brush
up. For quite a lot of reasons.
I didn't brush up on my German beforehand, so I have no way to end this interview in German. I will just say thank you so much. Dankeschön? Is that what I say?
Dankeschön.
Yeah,
Dankeschön. Danke sehr, if you prefer.
Danke sehr for coming on the program this morning, Tim. Be well.
Bitteschön.
All right, awesome. That's Tim Forster, freelance food culture technology writer and editor. Go check out my Twitter, @EliasMakos, and you can find Tim there if you want to follow along his Berlin adventures.